This podcast is sponsored by nobody. Hey dudes! Welcome to Splat from the Past, the only 80s themed horror and sci-fi show where things can get totally radical. Now today I will be welcoming Lisa Lucas. She was a child actress back in the 70s. She made a name for herself in those CBS family holiday specials where she was the little girl with pigtails, Addie Mills. In the House Without a Christmas Tree, the Thanksgiving Treasure, the Easter Promise, and so forth. But she also played Jill Clayburgh's daughter in one of my favorite romantic comedies of all time, Paul Mazursky's An Unmarried Woman, celebrating its 45th anniversary. She'll be my first guest from that movie. I've been trying to get a guest on here from it for a long time. And God, she's been in a lot of great stuff. Hadley's Rebellion, which I watched for the first time because I've interviewed a couple people in it, and I got her coming on and somebody else from it tomorrow. And the last movie she was in was Heart and Souls with Robert Downey Jr., and we're going to talk about all that stuff. She got out of acting, became a chef, and then became a investigative journalist. This is a very interesting life that she's had. Oh, and I forgot to mention she was in Herbert Ross's The Turning Point with Anne Bancroft and Shirley MacLaine. Yeah, lots of good stuff here. She's going to have some great stories, I imagine. It's going to be a great talk today. It's a great way to end the first week of summer, and I'll tell you, it's been very stressful this week. Two people asked me to edit stuff out, and one person gave me no choice but to edit. And I hate editing. Editing takes so much time. Yeah, I just wish people would communicate with me beforehand before telling me to edit my podcast episodes. It is just so stressing. But hey, here is my interview with Lisa Lucas. So this is such a great honor. Thank you so much for taking the time today.
Oh, you're welcome.
So, going back in time, you were obviously a child actor. What age did you officially start gravitating toward acting?
Well, I wouldn't say I gravitated toward it. It was something that kind of fell into place. My father was the king of the jingles, and I would do voiceovers and little jingles for him when I was about 6, 7, 8. And from then I got an agent named Mary Ellen White, I remember, and my mom kind of left me to it. I grew up in the city, so I was kind of going to auditions on my own since I was little. And I didn't have a stage mom. I just wanted to do it. And I thought it was so much fun. And so I started doing commercials and went on a few big auditions, which I did not get, like The Exorcist. Mm-hmm. And at 12, I did my first audition for House Without a Christmas Tree. Right. And kind of history wrote itself from there.
Yeah.
We did 3 more after that, so
yeah,
they kept me.
What kind of jingles did your dad do for what commercials?
My dad, well, he did probably everything, but he started with Yardley and a bunch of things, but his biggest claims to fame at the time were GE, mm-hmm. Bring good things to life, and reach out and touch someone, mm-hmm. Which was his most successful, which he wrote in 5 minutes, he claims. And then he did a lot of Pepsis and Cokes and all, he did probably everything at one point. And then he became, I'm sure you've heard of the more cowbell guy on SNL.
Yeah, of course.
Well, that's my dad.
Wow.
He produced Blue Oyster Cult, and he produced the Agents of Fortune album, where Don't Fear the Reaper is, and he played cowbell and sang on that track, and that's how it started.
Wow.
We have more. My father's legacy will be the cowbell, not his jingles, his songs.
Wow. David Lucas.
David Lucas. We have more cowbell things. There's T-shirts and signs all over the house. The more cowbell house.
Wow, I did not know that. That is so trippy that you're David Lucas's daughter. I did not know.
That's me. I grew up in the recording studio on 46th Street, where I later built my restaurant. And I was, in 1999, I opened and called D'Orsay after my favorite museum. I built from nothing, a restaurant on the ground floor on 46th on the restaurant row between 8th and 9th next to Joe Allen's. And all my friends from the theater would come in at night and play piano upstairs. Liza Minnelli would come up and hang, and the people from the shows would come, and we had a piano and hang out and drink. And yeah, it's still there. It's just not mine.
Wow, that is so cool. Yeah. So you're born in Arizona, raised in New York?
I was born, technically, literally just born and then left. And my father was in the Army, if you want to call it that. He was a weatherman, which meant he smoked pot and killed Gila monsters in the desert. Checked the weather balloons or something silly. We didn't stay there long. We came to New York when I was about 6 months, I think. And so, yeah, I say I'm born and bred in the city, basically. I grew up on 85th and 3rd in the Jefferson's building. Went on up. I was just talking about that a few minutes ago, actually. We moved in 66, and I was there 40 years before they got me out because it was rent-controlled. And
wow.
So, yeah, I grew up there. I walked to grade school on 82nd and took the bus to I had to go to this dumb school because I got in the special school for Hunter High School for all girls in 7th grade. But they were mean to me, and they said if I ever copied them again, may I fall off a horse and be crippled for life, and may my soul rot in hell. Gave me a letter, and I went off to do the Thanksgiving show, and I fell off the horse, and I have been crippled for life. And they kicked those girls out of school. And then they made me go to, my mom said, that's it, you're going to professional children's school. I didn't want to go. I wanted to be a normal kid. I didn't want to be going to the professional school, but because of that situation, I wound up at PCS, which I adored and loved and was there for all of high school.
Yeah, wow, yeah.
Mostly ballet dancers and Juilliard musicians, so they were all busy in ballet school during the day, so they couldn't go to regular school, and same with the Juilliard musicians. Russian ballet dancers, Asian musicians, and then a couple of us, like normal kids that sometimes acted and sometimes sang, but yeah, it was interesting because there was no gym. No one was allowed to have gym because they couldn't hurt their fingers or their toes. So we would play dodgeball in the courtyard. It was in a warehouse on 60th Street. That's also still there. And I loved it there. And it was a correspondence situation. It was the first school like it. So it wasn't for like fame. We didn't get taught dancing or singing. It was for working kids. So we had a syllabus. We knew what our assignments were a month ahead of time. And then when I was out on the set in LA or wherever I was shooting in Canada, I'd send us our assignments. We had our assignments ahead of time. And I would do my 3 hours of school a day, which is what you have to do when you're a child actor. And I would do my assignments, send them back in snail mail, and they'd correct them and send them back. And that's how I went to school.
Well, crazy.
Yeah, it'd be a lot easier now.
Yeah.
With computers.
With Zoom, yeah. Yeah, wow. So, okay, you get cast as Addie Mills, and was it annoying to get your hair braided for those pigtails every day?
Yeah, it wasn't that it was annoying. It was that and those glasses, which I still own, they weren't real, and they actually were the wrong style for the 1940s. They didn't have aviator frames at that point, apparently. So I don't know why they let me wear those. And I wore the same ones for all 4 shows for 4 years.
Wow.
But I hated wearing the glasses. Hated it. And I hated looking yucky and nerdy and unattractive. And I just felt really unattractive and not girly and very tomboyish. But I didn't care. You know, it was for the part.
Yeah.
Whenever I could, I took out the braids. And then finally in the last one, in adding the King of Hearts, I had such a crush on Richard Hatch, who played my teacher. And I got to get dressed up for the dance, for the Valentine's Day dance. And I got to curl my hair and take off my glasses and wear a dress. And I was so happy.
Oh, awesome. Yeah, that was at the time when, there were all these period pieces on television that had little girls with pigtails, like Melissa Gilbert on Little House and Jennifer Edwards as Heidi. Yeah. What was it like to work with Jason Robards?
It was great. I mean, he was so lovely and wonderful. And, I never anticipated knowing that I was going to be spending 4 years with him. Between the Christmas show and the Thanksgiving show, he had an almost fatal car accident.
Wow.
Mulholland Drive, and his whole face had to be wired. His jaw was wired, and he had to grow a mustache to cover his hair lip split from the accident. And he actually lost a voiceover campaign from Mercedes because his voice had changed. But things got a little different after that because he was a little more mellow.
Mm-hmm.
And he was just an angel. I learned so much from him. He would try and be gentle with me when he had to be mean to me, and I would actually start crying and get upset because I thought he was mad at me, not Addie. And I would get very emotional and upset about it. And it was, the biggest acting lesson I ever had, to just be thrown into this kind of tumultuous relationship with your father in the show, and at 12 years old, and try not to take it personally, and still, because I got very into my part. I mean, I don't think at 12 I even knew what method acting meant, not that I even do now, but, I knew all my lines by the time I got to LA on the plane. I knew the whole script by heart, including his lines, which was embarrassing for me because I would remind him of his lines like a little precocious brat.
Yeah.
If he forgot his lines, I knew them. So here I was, 12 years old, telling Jason Robards his lines.
Yeah, he was at an interesting point in his career, too, at that point, because he had been doing theater for 20 years, and his biggest claim to fame at that time was he was Lauren Bacall's husband after Bogart. But now, here he is starting to work on camera, and then within a few years, he's a 2-time consecutive Oscar winner once these TV movies ended.
Yep.
Yeah.
So it was, I mean, I didn't really understand the magnitude of who he was or what he represented at that point.
Yeah.
Of course, looking back, I realized how blessed I was to have worked with him.
Yeah. Tell me about working with Alexa Kennan, because I think she should have been an Oscar winner, and we lost her way too soon.
It's kind of a rough subject for me. I'll talk about it, but it's funny because I packed to come up here last night, and I have a photograph of her and I together with our hair mixed together. Our neighbor, we were roommates in 1981 in LA, and she was my best friend.
I didn't know that.
But anyway, I was looking at her picture when I was packing because it's in where my suitcase was, and I just staring in her eyes last night and not even thinking we were going to talk about her today. And I just had a moment with her last night. It's funny. But she was in the first one. She was Carla May in House at a Christmas Tree, and her mother was in it too. She played Gloria, who I give the Christmas tree to when I drag it.
Yeah.
She opens the door and she's got the baby on her hip, and she's Gloria's mother, who I bring the tree to. But her mom was kind of weird, and Lexi had never done anything really before, and for whatever reason they decided to replace her for the next 3. And so growing up in New York together and going on auditions, we had this kind of unspoken weird rivalry thing happening. We weren't speaking. And I think the thing was she thought that somehow I had something to do with her not coming back.
Mm-hmm.
So for many years we didn't speak. And we saw each other around, but then I was moved to LA, and I think I was 20. I was starring in actually a silly TV movie called The Perfect Match with Colleen Dewhurst and Charles Durning.
Mel Damsky, he's been on the show.
Oh, Mel. Yes, Mel directed it.
Yep.
There you go. And I was in the makeup trailer, and I said, well, who's playing, I forget her name, Misty or something, this girl I meet when I run away on Hollywood Boulevard. Angel. Her name was Angel, the character. And they said, oh, someone named Alexa Kennan. And I said, I'm not working with her. I pulled like a whole diva routine. It's like, no way. And they said, well, too bad. You don't get to say. And she walked into the makeup trailer and kind of didn't speak, and she sat down next to me. And within, 10 minutes, we were like best friends again. And I wound up having a problem with my then boyfriend at the time. He threw all my stuff out the window, and I called her, and she came and got me. I moved into her mother's house in Beverly Hills, big house, and we wound up getting an apartment together, and we're best friends, and did everything together for about 2 years. And then we both moved back to the city. We got hired at LA. And I decided to move to Paris and go to Cordon Bleu to become a chef. And I did that. And a week after I got there, she was supposed to come join me. And I got the call.
Oh.
And I was pouring rain, and I went to the cafe on the corner because I didn't have a phone on the Ocean in Paris. And my stepfather said some small talk, and he was kind of short with me, which he never was. And he said, "Oh, by the way, Alexi Cannon passed away last night." I was like, "Yeah, whatever, what?" He's like, "No, I'm serious." And I, fell down the wall. I dropped the phone and fell down the wall, and I ran to the payphone to call her mother and Todd Graff, who is my best friend from high school, and who was friends with her as well. And a friend of ours, Lawrence Monison, who was an actor at the time, I don't know where he...
The Last American Virgin.
Yeah, I don't know what happened to Lawrence. If you ever find him, let me know.
Oh, he's on Facebook. I've seen him and stuff. He's very private from what I know.
Oh, I'll try and Facebook him a message. He was supposed to have lunch or dinner with her, I think, and she didn't show up. So he went to her apartment and they found her.
Oh God, yeah. I mean, my dad and I, we loved the Clint Eastwood movie Honky Tonk Man, and she is so good in that movie, playing that annoying teenage girl.
She got that part. So I had gone up and watched her shoot in San Francisco, and that was her big breakthrough. Well, she was an amazing talent.
Amazing, yeah.
She could cry. I was so jealous of her. She was jealous of me because she wanted to be skinny. And I was jealous of her because I wanted big boobs. And also because she could cry on a dime. I mean, this girl, she could do things I could never do. I mean, it was amazing what this girl could do. Her ability to emote and to be in character and to become someone else for even in a split second. It was incredible. She was definitely a talent lost too soon.
Yeah.
And I still, every day, I talk to her every day.
Yeah.
And I look at her pictures every day, and every year I go to wherever chapel is around, and I did it at Notre Dame for the first year she died, because I was in Paris at the time, but I send a rose down the river.
Oh.
So she's still missed very much.
Yeah. You broke your leg during the Thanksgiving one, right?
Yeah, I was just talking about that an hour ago. As a matter of fact, someone just sprained their ankle a minute ago.
Yeah. Oh my God.
Yes.
You probably got bad arthritis from it, huh?
I have terrible arthritis, and I've just had 3 years ago. I had double fusion neck surgery. Mm-hmm. I've got 2 cages and plates in my neck because my spine is so crooked because of my posture. My leg was damaged.
Oh, my mom has that too.
I broke my ankle in 17 places when I fell off the horse.
Oh.
We were in Canada, not far from where I am now, actually. And we needed a pinto horse because it was called Marble Cake is the name of the horse in the show. And we couldn't find one. I had tested a few horses up in Canada, and then we were shooting in this tiny town, and some old guy came with his horse to watch us shoot, and he had a pinto.
Right.
Are you kidding? And we asked if we could use the horse. They said yes. He neglected to tell us that it wasn't, well, of course it wasn't a professional horse, but it was afraid of men. But they didn't tell us that. So when I galloped towards the camera for the scene, a grip leaned up to grab her, and she freaked out and bucked off with me and took off and threw me. And I fell and broke my ankle in 17 places and dislocated it. It damaged the growth plate. I was in a cast for 3 months up to my hip, and then we went back with a walking cast and finished shooting 3 months later. Kathleen Walker couldn't come back. Catherine Walker couldn't come back as our teacher because she was busy, so that's why Elizabeth Wilson filled in for her that year. Mm-hmm. But everyone had to come back to Canada. Jason, everybody, really. And it made my posture so bad that I have scoliosis because I
Yeah.
Jutted my right hip out my whole life to make up for it, the leg being shorter, and I didn't wear the lift. I was supposed to wear it as a kid, but whatever. So I have scoliosis. I had to have back surgery 5 years ago, and then now the neck surgery, and it's like they said, she's going to have the trouble later in life. When I was 12 when it happened, and 13, and they were right. Because starting about 50, the aches and pains, and I mean, I'm sitting here in this cabin with my heating pad, my ice pack, my anti-inflammatories, my CBD spray.
Yeah.
I have a suitcase. There's hardly any clothes in it. It's just full of all my stuff for my neck and my back.
I can relate to all of that.
I'm old. I'm 63, so, they said I'd start having trouble around 50, so.
Yeah, I could relate to all of that. I have scoliosis, and of course, I broke my leg in 7 places when I had my car crash. Like,
oh, dear.
I know how it feels, Lisa. I really do.
Oh, isn't it the worst? And then there's just nothing, and no pain pill can take the pain away. It's like, don't even bother with the pain pill. Forget it.
No, it's there forever.
Put me on an IV drip to get rid of this pain.
Yeah, I mean, you learn to deal with it as time goes on. I mean, I'm at the point now where it's not painful, where I have to take any meds or anything, but it's tolerable,
I found that I can't smoke pot because I don't want to get too high. I don't like the feeling, but I do edibles because I can take a little bite, and then if I'm okay, take another bite, and it kind of takes the edge off. And I've had long COVID for 8 months. So I'm already an insomniac. When I was 8, my mother would come in my room and find me singing up on my dresser to my stuffed animals, and at 2 a.m, or reading under my covers with a flashlight. And I'm still the same way. I don't sleep at all. And now I have what they call COVID-somnia, with long COVID, and so it's the little gummies seem to help a little bit with that too. So. I'm trying out some stuff to get, and when it's been so rainy, I was in Paris for 3 months, and it rained every day, and I was just in pain, and I had a headache, and I mean, the COVID didn't help, but it's the arthritis, I'm sure you understand, when you have that broken bones, when the weather gets weird, it seems to affect me terribly. I don't know why.
Yeah. So then you did the migrants, and this is sad for me because I was supposed to interview Cindy Williams before she passed recently.
Oh, what a lovely woman.
I cried for a month. She was one of my favorite actresses, and I tried since like the very beginning to get her on here. Yeah, her and Ron Howard had just done.
No, we had Sissy Spacek, Ron Howard.
Yeah.
Chorus. A lot of them are gone. It's Ron. David Clennon's still around.
Yeah.
That's it.
I saw David Clennon at a horror convention about 6 years ago. He's very friendly with all the people and stuff.
He's a lovely man. I've been so fortunate in my career. I mean, Unmarried Woman was, for me, the best experience of my life. But Outside Christmas Tree, of course, that launched my career. So I'm still dear friends with Alan Shane and Norman Sunshine. Alan Shane was the producer. He's now 96. He basically discovered me. I credit him for everything. And Norman, his husband of 58 years, he did all the collages that won us an Emmy. The collages that open and close every scene in the house, in all the shows. It starts with the picture of the house, and it goes into the picture of the real house.
Right.
And you see me putting together with paper the collages, and then it goes into each scene, each act fades in and out with a collage.
Yeah.
And we won the Emmy for that.
That's awesome. Yeah, a lot of those period pieces from back then had those like kind of picture collages, and it was pretty revolutionary at the time.
Yeah, I have 2 of them, lithographs of 2 of them, the house and the one with the horse from the Thanksgiving show in my house, framed.
How was doing the Addams Chronicles?
That was fun, mostly because of the costumes.
Yeah.
It got a little bit hot. Actually, the migrants was difficult because we were shooting in 100-degree weather in Vineland, New Jersey, on actual migrant farms, and we were actually picking the corn and the tomatoes, and they wanted it to be, Tom Grice, the director, really wanted it to be legit. So we were out there, and Chorus was giving us salt pills, and I passed out one day and Cloris took me to the hospital. And the people were dropping like flies. It was so hot and so hard. But Adam's Chronicles was Barngate, I think it was called, something in Massachusetts. Barnsdale, I can't remember. Some really old place. And the buildings were so cool, and the costumes were so much fun, and I had to learn how to play harpsichord because I played Nabby, I think. Did I play Nabby? Nabby Adams, yeah.
Let's see. Yeah, it was Abigail Nabby Adams the second. Yeah.
Yeah, Abigail, that short Nabby for nickname. And I had to play harpsichord in one scene, so I had to learn how to play, or clavichord.
Mm-hmm.
So that was fun, and I loved it. And Catherine Walker played my mom, so I got to work with her again.
Mm-hmm.
Because she was the teacher in the Addie shows.
How do you get cast in The Turning Point?
How did I what?
How do you get cast in The Turning Point?
I went to an audition with Herb Ross, and that was my first big film that I got cast in, and it was a weird experience. I mean, Shirley MacLaine and she didn't speak unless it was printed on the page.
Right.
She didn't speak. We had to wait a lot for her to get her eyelashes done one by one, and I kind of had a big setback in my acting theory, or what I suspected acting was, when I saw her getting menthol blown in her eyes to cry.
Mm-hmm.
I was crestfallen and thought that's not how you do it. This is cheating. I don't understand. This is acting. You make fake tears. So I was very upset.
Yeah.
But on the other hand, Anne Bancroft, who I had no scenes with, was just amazingly beautiful and wonderful and lovely. And
yeah.
One day, Mel Brooks came on the set because they had Max. Their son was, I think, 5 at the time.
Mm-hmm.
About that, and he came onto the set and he just pushed Herb Ross out of the way and said, "I'm here now. I'm directing." And he started directing us and telling us what to do and telling Baryshnikov to dance over there, and it was hysterical. It was a much needed break because which I've learned since, it was my first big film, and it was so different, the experience, than Unmarried Woman, because Unmarried Woman was more of an indie in a way, and it was Paul Mazursky had written and directed it himself, and
right.
You had to change one word in Turning Point. You had to go through all the way up to Arthur Lawrence, up to the writers. You had to go through the producers. You couldn't change it. You couldn't say the instead of or something. Any change had to be approved, and it was just very regimented and stiff. And Leslie Brown was not an actress, and she shouldn't have been cast as an actor. They should have used a double or something as for the dancing and cast an actress, because it made things difficult. The love scenes were impossible because she and Baryshnikov, she wouldn't be with him, and he was mad, so he was taking it out on her, and
yeah,
it was already, she wasn't an actress. To do love scenes was already going to be weird, and the whole thing was weird. It wasn't my favorite thing.
I can imagine.
And there's a lot of money involved, and a lot of time constraints, and a lot of,
mm-hmm.
It's like factory work. It wasn't, we were in a family, Unmarried Woman, Paul Mazursky, we were a family, all of us. We didn't rehearse lines. He sent us to lunch, Joe Clayburgh and me, or Michael Murphy, or he had my mom come and go to lunch with Joe Clayburgh, to know my mom. I wore all my own clothes. It was all my stuff in my room. It was my quilt and my posters and my stuff for my house. We were allowed to change, and I did the audition for Unmarried Woman. I'm sorry, I'm skipping around.
It's okay.
I went in and I did the scene with Alan Bates when I asked him if he smokes pot.
Yeah.
and I said, "Yeah, you got any?" I made that up. I was just ad-libbing, and Paul burst into laughter, Mazursky, and we kept it in the film.
Yeah, I love that. That's one of my favorite parts of the whole movie. You know.
The piano was in the apartment we were shooting in, and I'd taken all the guitar lessons at the Guitar Study Center. Paul Simon's brother, Eddie, ran it over on 60th Street.
Mm-hmm.
And I was taking piano lessons from Eddie himself. And my song that week was Maybe I'm Amazed.
Yeah.
Lesson.
I love that
So
scene.
we were setting up for another scene, and I sat at the piano to practice, and Jill was in a bathrobe, and she sat down and started singing with me, and Paul walked by, and he's like, wait a minute, stay there, do it again. Lisa, change your shirt, put your hair up. And we did it again, and we actually wound up going into the studio and recording it to make it sound worse, because it sounded too good, she said. And that wound up being, of course it wasn't written, but it wound up being one of their favorite scenes.
Oh, yeah, I love that scene. I mean, it looks like it's well rehearsed, and you both look like you just have such a rapport.
Yeah, it was one of those things. It just happened. He was walking by, and I was practicing, and we were just killing time, and it just worked out.
Your chemistry with her was just so wonderful. Did she mentor you in any way?
Not really. We just, we didn't, like I said, we didn't really rehearse that much, the lines, because Paul didn't want us to. And we just spent time together. We hung out. I babysat for her. She didn't have children with David Rabe yet. She had a stepson, Jason, David Rabe's son.
Right.
I babysat for him. We were all a big family. I still talk to Michael Murphy. He's the only one left.
How's he doing?
He's good. He's up in, I think, Maine now. He's kind of retired in the country. And Jill Mazursky, Paul's daughter, flew me out to L.A. Probably 6 years now, after Paul died, and asked me to sing Maybe I'm Amazed at his memorial at the Writers Guild. And, of course, I get there, and Ellen Greene is there, and she's doing a rehearsal in the auditorium and locked everybody out as if it was like a Broadway show before the memorial started. And Molly Ringwald sang with her blind father accompanying her, and Richard Dreyfuss spoke. I mean, there are so many famous people there. And, of course, who do I follow? Mel Brooks.
Oh, yeah.
And he got up there and talked about, because they had this kind of like this luncheon thing every week, these directors and writers at the farmers market. Paul was kind of the head of, and Mel was part of the group. And so he got up there, and you might as well, they should have done an HBO special on it, or Netflix special, because it was hysterical. And he killed it, literally killed it, and I had to follow him. So, and I had just had surgery, and I was on pain pills, so I had cotton mouth, and I was more nervous than I've ever been in my life. And I got up there and I sang it. It was terrible, but I did it. And at the end, at the reception afterwards, Ellen Greene comes up to me. She said, honey, at least you did it with heart. At least you had heart.
Love it.
It's like, gee, thanks a lot.
The first scene where her and her girlfriends are hanging out at the restaurant bar together, I believe in my heart of hearts that's where Sex and the City drew inspiration from, because Linda Miller, who, by the way, is Jackie Gleason's daughter and Jason Patric's mother, she tells the story about being with the guy who massages her toes and then her eyeballs. It's so much like Sex and the City, it reminds me of.
Yes, it's very much like that now that you mention it.
Yeah.
That was we did all those scenes for those women at 1/5 Avenue in New York at the restaurant 1/5 with the revolving door.
The revolving door, yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, then she has to leave the restaurant, and then David Rashi, when he was...
Yeah, he comes in right at through the door, and she says, like, fuck you or something.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, I cursed.
No, you can swear all you want.
Okay, I know she was mad and she was leaving, and I mean that's kind of what happened with Andrew Duncan, who just passed away. He played the guy in the taxi that goes on the date with Paul Mazursky and Linda and Kelly Bishop.
Okay.
They go to the Chinese restaurant for lunch on this date with Jill, and then he takes her home in the taxi on the East River Drive, and he tries to kiss her, and she comes home and finds me with Matthew Arkin making out.
Mm-hmm.
And we have a huge fight.
Yeah.
And that fight scene is so real. I mean, because Paul just let us rip. And he actually told her, we were coming around the corner of the front door into the living room, and I'm trying to get the boyfriend, Matthew Arkin, not to leave. I'm like, Phil, come back. And she told her to slap me. And she did. She slapped me across the face. You can't see it, but I stayed in character, luckily, and I was just fuming when I came around that corner. And I was just yelling at her and screaming at her, and then I sat on the window, and I guess I flared my nostril, and he liked it, so he made me do it like 3 more times. And in the movie now, it's like a close-up of my nostril flaring.
Wow.
It's so weird.
Yeah, that's what method acting is, though. You know, you gotta make it real.
Yeah, I mean, you can't even understand what we're saying. We're so mad and screaming at each other. We're overlapping each other, but that's how people fight.
Yeah.
It was so, I mean, my mother can't even watch the scene. She's like, oh my God, that's so you.
There's an interview on YouTube. This woman, she's been around forever, interviewing people for press junkets. Her name's Bobby Wygant, and she interviewed Jill and Paul when the movie came out. And near the end of the interview, she says, "This movie has been called a high budget soap opera. How do you feel about that?" And Jill got mad. I was watching it the other night. I was like, "Oh my God, she is heated, right?" And then after the interview is over, she didn't know the camera was still rolling. She really let her have it, and then the camera, turned off. I was like, "Wow."
Wait, what did Jill say?
She just like said, who said this is a high budget soap opera? The critics, and all this stuff. I mean, she was pretty offended by that.
I don't blame her. That's a terrible thing to say.
Yeah, I was like, wow. And
it's not. It was Oscar nominated. She was Oscar nominated. She won at Cannes. We went to one of the best parts of that was we went to the Cannes Film Festival. I spoke French already because I've been going there a lot and studying it. And we went on the Concorde. I was 16, I think, and they gave us champagne when we went to Mach 2 on the meter. I mean, and we stayed at the Carlton. I shared a room with Jill. John Boyd showed up in our room, and I mean, people kept parading Keith Carradine. All these people kept coming into the room. And I did all the interviews in French, and we got treated like royalty. And it was just like, oh my God, I was 16 years old. It was like, are you kidding? Is this really happening?
Were you disappointed you didn't get the New York Critics Film Circle Award?
No, I don't even think I knew about it at the time.
Okay.
Somehow I didn't know. But people have asked me that over the years, and it's like, no, but I'm happy to have been nominated.
Every time I see dog shit on the ground, I think of this movie.
I know, right?
Yeah.
Everybody does that. That's so funny.
How was guest starring on The Facts of Life?
Facts of Life was interesting. It was, for some reason, when everybody asks me that, all I can think of is craft service table. I remember spending a lot of time at the craft service table eating bagels. And the girl that played Blair hung out there a lot. So
Lisa Whelchel.
We were there a lot, and it's funny because I wound up being a journalist.
Right.
So it was called The Source, and I never knew why it was called The Source until recently, actually, when I looked at it again. It was fun. It was very brief. I don't have that much to say about it. It was kind of in and out.
When
Family Ties was more fun.
Right. Oh, yeah, Family Ties, you got to work with another guest of mine, Tony Mordente. He was the director. He was the director, and he was in West Side Story.
Oh, I don't think he directed the episode I was in.
Okay, maybe that's just a IMDb misnomer.
James Brooks, I think, did it.
James Brooks, maybe James Burrows.
I mean James Burrows, sorry.
Yeah. Yeah, Family Ties was fun.
Yeah, that was fun, because it was also my first public makeout. I mean, I had to make out with Matthew Arkin and Unmarried Woman, and the sound guys were giving me such a hard time. They were teasing me. I'm always friends with the crew. I make a point of always being friendly with the crew.
Yeah.
And so, they were over me with the boom when I was in my room, when I had to be making out with Matthew Arkin, and they were just teasing me relentlessly. But Family Ties, it was in front of a live audience when I had to make out with Michael J. Fox, and so, he was kind of like a little teen idol at the time. And so when we started making out, everybody was like, woo!
Yeah. Forbidden Love. Did you work with Robbie Morgan in that?
Robbie Morgan. I don't know. I remember Jerry Hauser and Danielle von Zernick, who I just had lunch with.
Oh my God, I would love. I wish I could get her on here. I've been a fan forever.
I'll send you her email if I can find it.
Oh, thank you. Yeah, I've been a fan of hers forever.
She's not acting anymore, but she's producing, like her dad.
Jill Jacobson was also in that. I'm actually interviewing her next week.
What did she play?
Let's see, in Forbidden Love. Let's see, what's her name in this one? Because she had done that low-budget horror movie, Nurse Sherry, in the late 70s. She plays Rosanna in this.
Oh, I don't remember. I wasn't in all of that much of it. I was only in the scene, in the like 4 scenes, I think. I saw
the episode you did of The Powers of Matthew Starr.
Oh my God, you did?
Yeah.
Is that when I make the plants grow or something?
Yes.
I had such a crush on him. What was his name?
Peter Barton. I interviewed him.
Oh, he was so cute. Oh my God, I had a crush on him. And Lou Gossett.
Yeah.
I did a scene with him, I think.
Yeah, I think he had just won the Academy Award, too.
Oh, right. That's so funny. I forgot about that. God, you know more about me than I do.
Yeah, Peter, it's funny, the show's audio only, but like he and I were on camera for our interview. At the time I was 37. He guessed I was 45. I was like, oh, thanks, you just made me even more insecure.
Oh, no.
Because my hair's a little gray and my hairline's receding a little, so yeah, that's why he guessed I was 45.
I'm trying to remember. Something happened. His girlfriend, somehow I got friendly with his girlfriend who was dating Bruce Springsteen. And this beautiful, beautiful brunette girl, and I can't remember how the connection was. There was something to do with Bruce Springsteen. I don't know why that came to my mind. I remember her being at my apartment in New York for some reason, and we're talking about Peter and Bruce Springsteen. I remember about that.
I watched Hadley's Rebellion recently.
Oh, boy.
I have Dean Miller coming on tomorrow.
Dean Miller? Are you kidding me?
No.
I love him. Could you please tell him I said hello?
Of course.
Give him my number.
I will.
Tell him to call me. What happened? Is he still working?
I think he's back in Chicago. I don't know what he's doing now. The last time he worked was like in the late 90s or something.
Oh my God, what a blast from the past. That's hysterical. I talked to Griffin not long ago. I'm still friends with Tatum.
Mm-hmm.
But that was a whole big scene. I was the only girl in the movie.
Yeah.
And Griffin and I, he had a crush on me, and I was a couple years older, but it's a long story, but he had his 18th birthday on the set, and Farrah and Ryan came, and then they wound up having a big fight, and that's when he punched his teeth out, and he showed up at my doorstep all bloody, and he moved in with me. And then he wound up stealing my car and taking off the catalytic converter and putting this Ferrari thing on it that made it sound like a sports car. It was my Toyota Supra. And he took every pill in the cabinet, and he just was out of control, man. And we had some crazy times for a while there. And then finally, I think Farrah Fawcett called me and said, "You're harboring a minor. Make him come home." I was like, "No, not." No, we just had to have his teeth put back in.
Yeah.
So I don't know if it happened. I think Tatum and I took him somewhere, I forget. But he's now sober, and he works, I think he's in Texas. And he's working with recovering addicts.
Wow. Yeah, the scene where you two are in bed and you're in your underwear, was that awkward to do in any way?
Yeah, you might say, because we had a running joke on the set, and the director, Fred, would take out a spoon, because Griffin had trouble putting things back in his pants, so to speak, after each take.
Yeah.
So Fred would take out the spoon and said, "If you don't get it together, I'm going to hit you with the spoon." So he would carry a spoon around all the time. It was like the running joke of the movie. Yeah, it wasn't awkward. It was funny. We had to keep from laughing mostly. And then I got to work with Charles Durning again.
Yeah, he was great.
I mean, I didn't really have any scenes with him, William Devane, but Charles was so great. When we did Perfect Match, it was just so great to have Colleen Dewhurst and Charles Durning be my parents. Like, come on.
Yeah, he was great in everything he did.
And I had such a crush on Campbell, her son.
Campbell Scott?
And, yeah.
Yeah, Fred Walton, oh my God, he directed When a Stranger Calls, which is a great horror thriller. He was a good director to work for?
Oh, yes, he was so gentle and so kind. Lovely man. Very nice. I haven't had any bad experience with anybody, really. I mean, I would say Shirley MacLaine was the least pleasant, but I haven't had anything bad ever happen, ever. I've been very lucky.
I'm a huge fan of Jake Speed. I have been for over...
Oh my God, you are really digging into my shit now.
Over 30 years, I've been a fan of this movie. How did you get involved
with... a fan of that movie? Come on now, Tommy.
What?
Come on. That was the worst movie I've ever seen.
Yeah, but how did you get involved in it?
I was just supposed to be a translator for the producing team. I was living in Paris, and
Crawford and Lane,
who was one of my oldest friends, knew somebody, and they said they're coming, and I don't know, somehow someone got my name and called me, and I was just supposed to help them get locations set up, and they wound up putting me in the movie. And then I remember I was just on that bridge like a month ago, on that bridge where we had to run, and it was freezing cold out and rainy, and I had to run up and down this bridge over the Seine for like the whole day. It was just relentless, and it was just awful. And then we had to go to this bad hotel room and do this scene when we're being shot at or something, or chased, I forget.
Yeah.
Something's happening, and we're being kidnapped, or I don't know, something's bad's happening, I forget, But it was a very low budget, very unprofessional, and just, I think they were making it up as they went along, and nobody knew what they were doing, and it was just a shit show.
Crawford and Lane, they produced one of my favorite movies of all time, Night of the Comet, and they were always at odds with the director of that movie, so I'm not surprised that this experience wasn't that good. Who was the director again? The director of this movie is Andrew Lane.
Of Jake Speed?
Of Jake Speed, yeah.
Oh. Who was the actor in it?
Wayne Crawford, who was the co-producer.
That's who I was dealing with mostly, Wayne.
Yeah, he died probably about, 5 years ago, something like that.
He was nice. I liked him.
Yeah, he passed about 5 years ago.
I think that he was a little bit out of his depth there. He was trying to produce and act and do everything at once, and like I said, it was kind of a chaotic mess.
Yeah, but that's the story I heard with all their productions, because they did Valley Girl also, and
oh, did they?
Yeah, Valley Girl, Night of the Comet, Jake Speed, and probably something else I'm blanking on. But the last movie you did was Heart and Souls with Robert Downey Jr., which I've heard him say it's one of his favorite movies he ever did.
Yeah, that was funny because I've been friends with him for years. I've known him since high school, and we weren't in the same school, but like we were at the Cannes Film Festival one year together, and with Rob Lowe and Sarah Jessica was his girlfriend at the time, and Sarah was in my school, and I was her math tutor, and her brother Pippin was one of my best friends. He was in my grade at PCS, and with Todd Graff and Pippin Parker and who else? Cortez Alexander, she's still acting. We were like the only actors in the school. But anyway, so yeah, I've known Robert since I was, 15, 16. And so I walked into the set. He said, "Lucas, what are you doing here?" I said, "I'm your mother, baby. I'm playing your mother." Yeah. He's like, "You're what? How's that going to work?" I said, "Well, you're only a baby when I give birth to you. I'm not in it when you grow up."
Yeah. So what made you go
for... That was fun. We did that in San Francisco. I loved working.
That's where I'm from.
I love San Francisco. I couldn't afford to live there now, but I love it.
Oh, yeah.
I was there in September, and the weather was so awful and freezing. I got a cold, and I got food poisoning. I just had the worst time, but I stayed in Tiburon and then Sausalito. But
Yeah.
I love it there. We filmed, what were we just talking about? Oh,
Heart and Soul.
Souls. We filmed there. We filmed a lot there, and they took down the whole, what's the road where the Ritz is? Stockton?
Yes.
Okay, they took out that whole actual wall where the bus goes over. They took that out. They had to put it back, but they took it out. And they also did a model of the bus going over, of that bridge, that little railing thing where the bridge goes over, right across the street from the Ritz.
Mm-hmm.
And then that's where they actually had them on wires, real wires, pulling them up through the air when they die and go up from the bus into my baby.
Mm-hmm.
They had them, and Charles Grodin was not happy. He did not like those wires at all.
Yeah.
Harnesses, oh no, was not happy. And he was writing his last book. Oh no, it wasn't his last. He was writing a book at the time. So between every cut and every action, he was writing in his little pad. And there's Kira and Alfred Woodard and Tom Sizemore. Oh boy, that was a challenge.
Oh yeah.
May he rest in peace. But we had to wait a lot because the trailer was shaking because he was busy doing things and doing a lot of things. And God knows if those trailer walls could have spoken. So that was interesting.
Yeah. So what made you go from acting to cooking to journalism?
Well, it came down to me and 4 others for Flashdance.
Mm-hmm.
After thousands and thousands of girls. And we started doing screen tests. We did choreography lessons. There was Jennifer, there was Leslie Wing, who was a dancer, there was Meg Tilly, who wound up dropping out, Sean Young, who wound up dropping out, me and one other person. So it got down to like 3 or 4 of us at the end. And we did screen tests, and they'd run out of money. And Adrian, I'd almost worked with Adrian before for a movie called Foxes.
Oh yeah.
It was that or go to Yale. And because they lost the money, so they had to cast Jodie Foster because she had to deal with the studio. So I lost the lead role of the 4 girls. And so they said, David Putnam and Jerry Bruckheimer took me out, wined and dined me, said, just take any other part, because that was right when my other 2 movies had come out. I was kind of, like, that was the peak of my career at that time. So they wanted me in it. And they took me to Tower Records and let me buy whatever I wanted. They took me to dinners, Spago, and Jerry and David, not their people. They did. And I just decided I'm not going to take one of these smaller roles and not go to Yale. So I didn't do it. So when it came down to Flashdance, Adrian was still kind of mad at me.
Mm-hmm.
But he really liked me. We really got along really well. But so we did this screen test, and they hired this unknown actor named Kevin, this guy named Kevin Costner, or I didn't know how I spelled his name. In my phone book, it says Cosner.
Mm-hmm.
We had the same agent, and unfortunately, we did the first scene. It's the making love scene, and they would say cut, and we just kept going. And then when we did the lobster scene, and we actually drank real wine, so by the time we were done, we were both drunk, and then Sean Young was waiting to do her turn with him in the next room. We'd taken 3 hours for our 2 scenes. We were doing it in the Paramount offices because they'd run out of money.
Yeah.
And they were using a smoke machine, and Adrian was really into it, and Kevin and I were just going at it. And I fell madly in love, and he was married, and things got complicated. And then Adrian kind of pulled a casting couch number on me.
Oh, I'm so sorry.
I was like, are you kidding me? We have 2 weeks to find out who's going to get the biggest part in Hollywood, and you're going to do this to me? I said, no. And, of course, I did not get it. And I was on a payphone on Melrose when I got the call, when I called my agent, I guess. And I hung up the phone. I said, I'm leaving. And I told Bexy, I said, let's get out of here. Let's go. So we moved back to New York. And then I said, you know what? I'm done doing stuff where I have to rely on other people. I want to do something that I'm in charge of. I'm in control of all aspects of it. If it's good, it's because I made it great. If it's bad, it's because I screwed it up. So I'm going to go to cooking school. And I decided to move to Paris and go to Cordon Bleu. And I met my future ex-husband towards the end of school. Mm-hmm. And I stayed for 6 years. And I did come back to the States for 3 years because I couldn't deal with Lexi's death. So I stayed there for 3 years straight. And then I was married by then.
Wow.
And then I came back, and what happened? I went back to LA. That's when I did Heart and Souls. Mm-hmm. And then I just decided I was done with LA. I couldn't do the whole thing anymore. It wasn't what I wanted to do. That's when I went back and started the restaurant, and I got a liquor license next to a church, which is unheard of.
Yeah.
A year and a half. They don't even give liquor licenses in New York City anymore, but I got one literally next to a church, but you have to be 200 feet. But I did research. I couldn't afford a lawyer, so I did it myself, and I did it and built this restaurant from the ground up. And then when that was closed, the investors turned out to be like Israeli mobsters, and they were money laundering, and they sold it for a loss right out from underneath me. Lucy Arnaz tried to help me save it. She'd come into the restaurant. We became really good friends, and she tried to have a fundraiser, and they wouldn't even let me have first refusal to buy it. So I moved to Florida and took care of my grandmother, and I wanted to finish my degree because I thought maybe I could teach acting or do something. So I went to FAU and got my degree. I graduated summa cum laude, turns out, at 47.
Nice.
48. Yeah, doing math and science at that age is pretty hard. And it was hard when I was 15. And then I started working for the school paper, and I'd always been into writing. I'd always been a good writer and photographer, and I just wound up working at the school paper, and I got a job right out of school. I took every class I could on journalism and communications. I got my degree, and I got a job with the New York Post, and that I didn't like them. We got into an argument about a case, and so I cold called the New York Daily News, and they took me, and I worked for them for 9 years. I covered everything in Florida, a Trayvon Martin trial, gavel to gavel, every trial, John Travolta's trial in the Bahamas. They tried to extort him and died. It was horrible. And I had to follow Madonna and A-Rod around. Oh, poor me. Had to go to Madonna concert for work. But that was really exciting for me because I used the word, she was gyrating in front of A-Rod during the concert, and Chelsea Handler had her show then, and she quoted my article. And that was my biggest thrill, that Chelsea Handler read my words. And then I worked as an investigative journalist which I still do actually sometimes, for a Florida magazine, and won a ton of awards. I do stories on strippers and sex trafficking and a lot of exposure stories.
I wanted to bring that up to you because I was in a sex traffic, or not it was more like a human trafficking situation, but I didn't know about it for 4 years, which scared the shit out of me when I found out.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
That's horrible. I did a whole piece on labor trafficking in Florida, and then I did a piece on sex trafficking for like wealthy white rich girls, like judges' daughters and lawyers' daughters, rich gated community kids that were trafficked, and no one even knew what that meant. They were living with these black rapper guys and having sex with strangers and not allowed to see their families, and no one figured out it was being trafficked.
Yeah. I was I was homeless for 4 years. Me and my mother both.
Oh wow! How long ago?
It was 2013 to 17.
Oh my!
And during that time, I was in a group home for adults with disabilities. And I was in 2 of the homes, but the first one was pretty bad. I got kind of sexually assaulted in there, and I was not safe from the moment I stepped in there. 4 years later, I'm visiting my brother in the Bay Area before he moved in with us, and I'm watching a news report. That home which, by the way, was also a daycare center for children. They were human trafficking Filipino children for over a decade, laundering $20 million, and they sexually assaulted these kids as well. And just about, I don't know, 3 months ago, they got sentenced to prison for life.
Wow.
Yeah, I got a lot of PTSD from seeing that news headline. I mean, it was scary. Just, I knew I wasn't safe there for a reason. It was just a weird feeling being in that place. And the fact that I was a major alcoholic at the time didn't help anything. I just never felt safe there.
I'm sure. Oh, it's terrible.
It is.
Well, I'm glad that you're out of that situation.
Yeah, it was pretty awful, I have to say. But oh my God, yeah. I mean, do you think that it's just getting worse, or do you think that more people are becoming aware of human trafficking and sex trafficking?
I think there is more of awareness, and that's one of the things that I was campaigning for when I was doing these stories, is not so much to solve these particular cases, but to bring awareness to the fact that this is happening in your backyard, people. You think you live in Florida in a gated community and you're safe, but you're not.
Yeah.
Your kids are being targeted, the private school children. It's not just public school black kids or underprivileged children. This can happen to rich white kids too. So,
Yeah.
look out.
It can happen to anybody, and they don't realize that.
Yeah,
So,
I think there is a more awareness about it, surrounding it, the topic these days.
yeah, I mean, I've talked to a lot of actors who have become investigative journalists, and if there's one,
Really?
yeah, and if there's one thing that they all share, yourself included, is that you are probably the most honest of any actors I've interviewed, because certain ones I've talked to, you could just tell they're full of shit, and they want to hide stuff, but no, you guys are like the most honest and real.
Yeah, I've always, unfortunately, sometimes to a fault. I have nothing to hide. I wear my heart on my sleeve, and it is what it is.
Exactly. So what do you got going on these days?
I'm writing. During the pandemic, I took a lot of classes at Yale, extension classes, alumni classes like history and English and literature. And I love school, so I love learning things. And I'm taking a lot of writing classes. I wrote a pilot. I wrote a screenplay, and I'm writing short stories now. Mm-hmm. And some poetry, not like fancy poetry, kind of weird poetry. But I'm just trying to build up to everyone. For the last 30 years, is that you have Richard Brown from the New School. I used to go speak to his classes. He would ask actors to come to each one of his classes, mostly housewives. He had like 300 women a week in his classes. He was big film class at the New School in New York, and he wrote a lot of books. And he told me many years ago, when I would go guest speak for him, you have to write a book. And I'm working towards it, so I'm practicing.
Yeah. Oh, that's awesome. I mean, at least you're still in the business in some capacity.
I had an audition this weekend, didn't get it, to play Robert Kraft's wife Myra, but for a Ryan Murphy series. And so it would have been a great gig, but it was a small part, and she's supposed to be 64 and Jewish, and I don't look either. So I am actually half Jewish, but I don't really look it, and I don't think I look my age. Last I looked in the mirror, so I didn't think I was going to get it because I don't look like my mother.
You do look good. I mean, you're still beautiful.
Oh, thank you.
Absolutely.
I try. I watch what I do, and I put on my cream every night and do my exercise. But so I do that, and I'm going out to LA in October to do the Hollywood show.
Mm-hmm.
Oh yeah. Because I went last time, and it was COVID, so nobody came. So
I want to go to a Hollywood show someday. I almost went in 2020 until the pandemic hit. I was going to meet the whole cast of Grease, and I was so disappointed that happened. But like
Oh.
Barbara Luna, the legendary actress, she books all her friends for that show. She practically runs that show with the other people who run it and stuff. And so like a lot of those people, they come on the show and they promote their upcoming appearance and stuff, But yeah, someday I'll go to a Hollywood show.
Yeah. It's where do you live?
Currently, I just moved to Modesto,
Oh, in Modesto. Right.
but I'm so glad that you've got all that great stuff going on, and I thank you so much for coming on today. This was great.
You're welcome. It was a pleasure. Thanks for taking me through memory lane.
Absolutely, and Dean just messaged me, so I told him you said hi. So
Oh, dude. Okay, good.
I'm waiting for his response. Yeah, and if Danielle wants to come on, that would be great too.
All right, I'll go and try and find her email.
Thank you so much. You have a great day and
All
be
right, Tommy.
safe.
Take care.
Thank you.
Thanks. All right, bye-bye.
Bye-bye. Well, there you have it. Lisa Lucas. Ain't she a sweetheart? What a great lady, huh? And yeah, she sounds honest to a fault for sure, but she's a great person, obviously, and I'm so glad that she's out there and kicking ass and taking names. Well, until next time, this is Tommy Throwback Kovac saying there's no shame in living in the past because the present sucks. Later, dudes.